Am I the for calling the cops on my ex-boyfriend? So this is probably going to be a pretty long story, but I promise it's worth the read. I am not using anyone's real names. I-19F moved 6 hours away from my family and to a new state so I could be with my boyfriend, who we'll call Icky Man at the time 20 meters. We moved in with his best friend, we'll call James 24 meters, James's girlfriend, we'll call Carly 32F, and Carly's daughter, we'll call Grace 12F. Carly's sister and her son didn't live with us, but they're part of this story, so I'll add them in with everyone else. We'll call Carly's sister Snake 29F and her son Riley 11 meters. For a little more context, I have very bad anxiety and did not know any of these people prior to moving. I also don't have a driver's license. This will be somewhat relevant later. We were there for about a week before me and Icky Man went to my dad's for his wedding, and my dad lived about 8 hours away from where I lived at the time. At said wedding he told my stepmom how much he loved me and how I meant everything to him, and even showed her a very long poem that he wrote about me. Skipping forward to when we're back home and where the problems start. I noticed he started being very cold towards me, didn't really want affection of any kind, and when I would bring it up he would get pissy and say he wasn't doing any of that. About 3 days after that, he told me we needed to talk. He picked me up from work, and when we got back home he told me that he lost feelings for me romantically, and he claimed that he wanted to work things out and he didn't know if it was just his emotions being messed up from all the stress we were under. We were tight on money and we needed to save $1,800 to move into a new place. My roommates had already paid their part of it, they were just waiting on us, and we had to get the money in less than a month. So I stayed because I didn't want to lose him, and he said he wanted to work things out. After this we kept getting into arguments about me being too clingy and dependent on him. He drove me to work in the morning and would sometimes pick me up, and I would ask him to help me do things like make food. I was still very uncomfortable in the house we were in because I didn't know the people we lived with and I felt like I was intruding, so I just wanted help with things. He told me I was acting more like a child than his partner and that he wasn't my parent, and he felt like he was taking care of both me and himself. During that argument he said the only difference between you and a child is that you have a job and make money. He also said that he didn't feel like he could talk to me about problems he had with me because I would either cry or shut down. I would cry because he would either be raising his voice at me or because he was being and I would shut down because I didn't know what to say. A couple days after that argument, he said he was having a hard time and was uncomfortable at the house and needed to go for a drive. I wanted to go with him, but he said he needed to be alone to think, and then he left. He was gone for about an hour and a half before I called him to check on him. This was at about midnight. When I called him he was at Snake's house and was refusing to come home. I was having a panic attack, hyperventilating, crying. I didn't want to sleep there without him and I wasn't comfortable being there without him. He ended up coming home, but Snake drove him, and he only came back to talk to me for a little bit. We sat outside and talked about everything that was going on and again how I wasn't independent enough. All while Snake was sitting there meditating. He said something along the lines of, if you cared about me then why did you wait an hour and a half to check on me? I said it was because he wanted to be left alone and I didn't want to bother him. He said, well, I would have still checked on you. Which isn't true, after he told me he lost feelings for me romantically, and I went on a walk with Carly and Grace and was gone for a couple hours and he didn't check on me once. After we talked he went back to Snake's house. He spent the night there and only came back in the morning to take me to work. After this going on for a few days and him becoming more distant, I asked him if he had feelings for someone else and he said yeah, kinda, and I asked if it was Snake, and he confirmed that it was. I initially told him that I wasn't going to make him block her, just that I wanted him to distance himself from her as much as possible. Which was hard since she's Carly's sister and Grace's aunt. We didn't have hot water so we would have to go to Snake's house to shower, and he was not going to go to her house without someone else going with him. He agreed to all this. I know I shouldn't have done this, but after that happened and he fell asleep, I went on his phone and looked at their chat in Snapchat. There was barely anything saved, so there wasn't much context to what was saved, including a text from her that said good. After I saw that I woke him up and asked him about it. He claimed he couldn't remember and that it was probably just her response to him telling her that he got home safe. I told him at this point he needs to block her, but he refused. He said she was his support and he needed her, and we got in a whole argument about that. He said he talked to her about things he was uncomfortable talking to me about, and when I asked him why he was uncomfortable, he said I don't know, it's just how I was raised. He got up and went to sleep on the couch, but I wouldn't let him. I didn't want to sleep alone and he eventually came back to bed. We kept getting into arguments about one thing or another, and he constantly switched between telling me that I was doing things wrong and that I wasn't doing things wrong and he was the problem. While he was trying to sort out his feelings for me, I told him that he need to think hard about this, because if he broke up with me we're not getting back together, we're not being friends, and I am leaving. He either had me as a partner or he didn't have me in his life at all. I'm not sure exactly when, but sometime while this was all happening, Snake had come over and she had a bunch of hickeys on her neck. She had a long-distance boyfriend. About 2.5 to 3 weeks after all this initially happened, he was playing video games with Snake and James online and being cold towards me. I asked him he still had feelings for me and he said I don't know. I asked him if he wanted to break up with me and he said I don't know. I told him to get off the game and that to me and he got pissy but did. I asked him if he was leaving me for Snake and he said no, I'm leaving you because I'm not happy in this relationship anymore. I asked him if he started to lose feelings for me before we moved and he said I think. Why would he bring me out of state with him if he was having doubts in our relationship? The night he broke up with me I texted my dad and he planned to come pick me up that weekend. It was Wednesday at the time. And I had also texted my friend, we'll call him Milo, and told him what happened. I also kept Milo updated on everything as it was happening. The next night we got into an argument. It started as us talking about my feelings and he started being and raising his voice at me. Snake had showed up to comfort Grace because James and Carly were also fighting. Icky Man said he was done talking and was going to go outside. I asked to hang out with Snake? And he said yeah, even though I know you don't like it, I don't care. And I responded with yeah, if you didn't care while we were in a relationship, why would you care now? And he got up and left. After him being outside for a while I went outside to check on him. He looked at me and said why are you out here? And I said cuz I can be. Why are you out here? And he said cuz I can be. Then he said are you out here cuz you want to be or because you want to control me? And I said because I wanted to check on you and he said in the most upbeat and happy tone oh, I'm fine. So I went back inside and went to sleep. I had woke up a couple hours later and Icky Man wasn't in bed or on the couch. I wandered past Grace's room to go to the bathroom and saw that him, Grace, and Snake were all asleep in Grace's bed, and him and Snake were cuddling. He couldn't even wait till I left before he was all over her. After he walked out of the house that night I packed all my stuff. I also had my cat Raven 12F and my geckos Echo and Apollo with me. So my elderly cat had to be moved and in a very stressful situation twice. The next morning I asked him for his car keys so I could get my stuff out of his car. He handed them to me and said don't worry about the stuff in the storage unit, I'll take care of it. But he said it in a very tone. I calmly said please don't talk to me in that tone, I'm just trying to get my stuff and he said I'll talk to you in whatever tone I want. And as said oh, like how you'll cuddle with Snake whenever you want, while I'm still in the same house. And he laughed. I went outside to get the stuff from his car and he followed me outside and said also, if you're gonna talk about the situation, at least talk about it outside like everyone else has the decency to do to you. I respond with oh like the decency you have to be all over your new girlfriend while I'm still here? And he said she's not my girlfriend and I said yeah, she doesn't want you either. And he went inside. I was on the phone with my aunt the whole time this was happening, which is why he told me to talk about it outside, cuz I was in our room telling my aunt what was happening while he could hear me. I went back inside and we got in another argument where at the end I said, you and he yelled go, yourself my name. He went and sat outside and after about 15 to 20 minutes I went outside and sat down and said can we please just talk without arguing and you raising your voice and he said are you gonna say, you to me again? And I said no but in my head I was like I dunno, maybe. I tried talking about how I felt and he started getting a tone and raising his voice. I said how much it hurt that he was cuddling with Snake while I was still there and he said I'm sorry you see it as a relationship, but I see I as a close friendship and support. I said something like yeah, I do see it as a relationship. He said you can't think, oh he'd never do something like that to me. And I said well I don't know if you would. Obviously implying cheating and he got up and walked away. After that I called my coworker now best friend Kay, and packed some stuff for overnight. She picked me up and I stayed at her house the last couple days I was in that state. Kay was there for me while all this was happening and she's the best. I'm sad I had to move away from her. Icky Man said he was going to have my stuff outside for me when I get there to pick up my stuff and my animals, but when me and my dad got there he was at the storage unit with Snake getting my stuff, when he had like 2 or 3 days to take care of it like he said he would. I went inside to get my animals and saw a blanket that wasn't either of ours on his bed and I asked Grace if Snake slept in his bed while I was gone. She said yeah, An 8-hour car trip later I got to my dad's. I checked my boxes and found out I left a few things, including my folder of important papers that had my bank info, my birth certificate, and my SSC. I texted Icky Man and told him and he never responded. So I had my grandpa that lives in the same town text Icky Man text him. Icky Man said I don't know you and I don't have time for this. And stopped responded to grandpa. So I called the cops and they told me to have my grandpa call a dispatch number and a cop will go to Icky Man's house with him. Grandpa was out of town at that time so he wouldn't be able to go for a few days. I texted Icky Man's stepmom and told her what was going on and that the cops were going to his place and she said I told him to man up and give you your stuff back, but I didn't tell him about the cops. Icky Man told his stepmom that he didn't live at that place anymore and he didn't know where my stuff was. She also found out that Carly filed a restraining order against him and that's why he didn't live there anymore. You wanna know where he moved? Snake's house. Even though he claimed multiple times that she didn't have anything to do with him breaking up and they're not together. My grandpa showed up to his old place with a cop and talked to James and Carly and got his new address. Grandpa also picked up a couple of my things that were still at that house, which was a couple stuffed animal, one of which being my first stuffed animal I got when I was born, which was a penguin. Carly told me that Icky Man planned on destroying it, so Grace kept them in her room till my grandpa got them. Then grandpa showed up to his new place with 2 cops and that's the only reason I'm getting my stuff back. Because he got scared by the police. Carly did end up confirming that Icky Man did sleep with Snake before he broke up with me. She didn't know about it until after I left, otherwise she would have told me. While I was still living there I had asked him if the hickeys on her neck were from him and he said no. So not only did he cheat on me, he lied about it when I asked him. All of this happened between June 1st to July 4th. July 4th is when I stayed at my coworker's house, and I got to my dad's on July 6th. I had to find out Snake's last name so I could tell my grandpa, so I found her Facebook page. She posted she was in a relationship July 7th. Her and Icky Man started dating the day after I left. His dad and stepmom disowned him and he's just burned bridges with everyone except his mother, who is a narcissist just like him and Snake. How long little sister doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. And Carly, James, and Grace all cut off Snake. This stuff is still going on. My grandpa hasn't gotten my stuff from Icky Man yet, as far as I know. TLDR, my ex cheated on me without roommate's sister, and when I moved and left my personal documents there he refused to give them back, so I called the cops on him.